Hey, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I wanted to do something a little bit more laid back, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more casual, if you will, and that being our very first Q&A session. So I plan to do these once a month, and I actually posted the prompt for this video on my personal Instagram, which I'll link below in the description. I typically only post the business page in the description below, but for all Q&A videos, I'll try to remember to post my personal page. That way you all can follow and be up to date whenever I post the prompt for these Q&A videos. I have a list of about 10 or 11 questions to read off. And without further ado, let's get started. Question number 1, Tariq asks, how do you prevent/deal with holes developing in the inner thigh? I have an athletic build. Well, Tariq, this is a very good question, and this is something that I used to see quite often prior to getting into custom clothing, which if you do buy a custom suit with us here at Eric Austin, that is a bit of an easier fix. However, to answer your question, when dealing with issues where the thighs rub or you develop holes on the inner part of the trouser, the best solution would be to purchase trousers that are 1 to 2 sizes bigger than your typical waist size. Because what this will usually do is give you a bit more room in the thigh area, which should help with eliminating some of that fabric rubbing together, Now, one of the cons to this is the waist will oftentimes be much bigger than your actual waist size. But of course, a tailor could simply just take the waist in, which of course would give you that correct size and then eliminate some of that issue you're having with the thighs rubbing. Now, one other tidbit that I will add for you, Tariq, as well as anyone else out there that deals with this issue, is to try to go with fabrics that do not have that raised or textured finish. For example, bird's eye patterns have that raised or textured finish, and a lot of times what you'll see when that fabric starts to rub, the textured finish will start to go away and create a bit of a sheen. So what you'll see is specifically on the inner thigh, it'll have a bird's eye or a textured finish, and then where that rubbing happens, it'll actually eliminate that textured finish and it'll be completely shiny, which just does not look good. So you'll have texture and then you'll have a shiny finish, and clearly that's an indication that something has gone wrong with the fabric. So if at all possible, I would try to stay away from those, but to ultimately answer your question, I would just go 1 to 2 sizes up on the trouser size, and that should give you more room on the thigh area. Question number 2, Mark asks, where or who did you get your style of dressing from? Good question, Mark. So for me, when I first got started about 11 years ago, I actually had a style mentor who would kind of sit me down, make me watch old movies such as Rocky, American Gangster, Malcolm X, the original Wolf of Wall Street, another really good movie, and just teach me a bit about style, a bit about dress, making me pay close attention to the shoulder style, the way that the clothes draped, the fit of the trousers, the higher waistband, the pleats, the cuffs, and he really just kind of broke down each individual time period. And ultimately, I just kind of over time developed my own personal style. Now, another thing, when I first got started, I was just quite frankly broke. So it was a lot of thrifting, a lot of hand-me-downs, and I ultimately just had to be creative. So I would take a lot of suit separates and full suits and split them up and turn them into my own creations, if you will. I just had to get really creative with how I put together outfits, and that over time allowed me to develop my own personal style. Next question, another one from Mark. Mark asks, who is your favorite designer? Another good question, Mark. I'd have to go with me. Question number 4, question from Sean. Sean asks, what is the best weight of wool suiting for Texas climate? Okay, Sean, so for warmer climates such as Texas, I actually have quite a few friends that live in Texas. I love Texas. I go to Dallas quite frequently. I would say to try to go with fabrics that have any type of blend. So for example, wool, silk, linen blends, cotton, linen blends, wool, cotton, silk. There's a bunch of different blends, but anything with a blend. The reason I say that is because most blends have that light weight to them, but they kind of eliminate some of the wrinkling that you'll see if you go with a 100% linen fabric. So with blends, again, really great as far as weight. For me, I find a lot of blends to be extremely comfortable. And of course, when you're dealing with extreme heat, such as a Texas, for example, or an Arizona, as another example, you obviously want to be as comfortable as possible. And one thing that a lot of guys don't like when it comes to pure linen fabrics is that when dealing with 100% linen, when you sit down in the joints of your elbows or your knees, you have a lot of wrinkling and it just isn't the most attractive look. So In conclusion, I would go with any type of blend, wool silk linen, cotton linen, and that should be the most comfortable. One last thing I almost forgot. If we're getting very specific, I would try to stick with fabrics that are 275 grams per meter and lighter. So 275, 270, 265, and of course, anything lower than that. Once again, the lighter weight typically is gonna be a bit more comfortable for hotter climates. Next question, Tyler asks, can you please explain super count to me? Yes, Tyler, so let's talk about super count. So the analogy that I always give when speaking to first-time customers or clients when we're going through fabrics would be to compare super count to thread count with bed sheets. So this is not always the case, but typically the higher the super count, just like with bed sheets, the higher the thread count, the more fine, more expensive, more delicate the fabric. Very similar when it comes to suiting. So if you compare a Super 110 to something like a Super 180, the Super 180 in most cases will be much lighter, much more delicate, and in most cases, much more expensive. Next question, Ace Skrillex asks, for your MTM polos, can one select the collar band height and collar length? Yes, very easy, very simple. Yes, Ace Skrillex. When you do purchase one of my MTM polos, you can select the collar band height as well as the length on the collar. So, yes. Question number 8, and we have a couple questions from Scott. Scott asks, bow tie or necktie? Very easy question, very easy answer for me once again, Scott. I always wear neckties unless I'm wearing a tuxedo. And actually that jogs my memory on something. Whenever you're wearing a tuxedo, I personally would recommend only wearing bow ties. I do see some gentlemen wear neckties with tuxedos. I've seen rare occasions where I think it looks okay, but in most cases I would only wear a bow tie with tuxedos and neckties with suits. I know that there are some older styles where a lot of gentlemen would wear bow ties. I guess you could say back in the dandy era, for example, but I typically only wear neckties with suits and bow ties with tuxedos. Next question, another question from Scott. He asks, what are your favorite add-ons to a suit? I.e. pant cuffs, peak lapels, pleats, etc. So another really good question. So Scott, for me, I touched on this in another video, but here at Eric Austin, we have what we call our house style, which essentially, when it boils down to it, is just a bunch of design options that I personally love. So first being a pleated shoulder, a wide notch or peak lapel, a 2-inch cuff on the trousers, and side tabs on the waistband of the trousers. Another thing that I've been doing quite often would be a single pleat on the trousers. I don't do a lot of double pleats personally. I do like the look, but just me personally, I like a single pleat. But to answer your question, Scott, pleated shoulder, wide peak or notch lapel. I always wear a 2-inch cuff on everything except a tuxedo, and then side tab adjusters on the trousers. Next question, one more question from Scott. Scott asks, what's the difference between staple suits and trendy suits? So let's talk about this as well. I would say pretty self-explanatory. Trendy suits are gonna be just that. They're gonna follow a lot of trends. So for example, right now we see a lot of straight leg trousers, bell-bottom trousers, longer jackets. We also are seeing a lot more high-waisted trousers, which is a trend that I personally love. But trends are just gonna be something similar to the definition of fashion versus style. Fashion being something that kind of goes with the trends, ebbs and flows, in and out, something that is here today and gone tomorrow. And then something like style is something that's gonna be a bit more personal to you. But to get back to your question, again, trendy suits are gonna be something that kind of comes and goes with the season. When it comes to staple suits are gonna be, for me, your traditional gray, blue, and black suits. The reason we typically start with gray and specifically navy suits are gonna be because you essentially turn 2 suits into 4 different outfits. You can wear the navy jacket with the gray pants, the gray jacket with the navy pants, etc. And also those 2 colors usually go with pretty much any color shirt as well. And for the final question of this video, I might do a part 2 because I have quite a few questions to get to. Akeem asks, what's the correct length for your trousers? 1 break, ankle showing, no break, etc. Okay, Akeem, so this is probably top 3 most asked questions, not just for me, but for menswear in general, the break of the trousers. I think the easiest way to tackle this question would be simply to say it depends on the context of the suit. So for example, if this is a suit that you're wearing to work, for an interview, I would say to go with a slight break, meaning that the pants just very slightly buckle, if you will, over the top of the shoe. A lot of gentlemen might say to go with a full break, Me personally, I think a full break in most cases is a bit too much. The reason I say that is because a full break in a lot of cases sometimes looks like the pants don't fit. So for me personally, I would say to go with a slight break because you're still covering the top of the shoe. The pants still crease just a little bit without them looking like they're simply the wrong size. When it comes to no break or showing ankle, I would say this is more appropriate for a suit that you're just wearing, let's say to a wedding or for some type of event to where there isn't a real dress code. So I would say that's an appropriate occasion to wear no break. And it also depends on your type of shoe. So me, for example, I only wear loafers, and loafers typically have what we call a lower vamp, meaning that they're cut a little bit lower. So you also want to make sure that the pants are long enough to kind of hit right at the top of the shoe. A lot of guys think when it comes to no break that you should be showing a whole bunch of ankle and that the pants should be flooded, which technically is no break, but for me, I do like them to still be long enough to where they just graze the top of the shoe and you can show a little bit of ankle and sock if you want to. So again, I have many more questions to get to, but I might save that for part 2. I just wanted to come to you again with a bit more of a laid back, casual video. Again, I'm gonna do my best to do these once a month. Please hold me to that. And as always, if this video was helpful, please let me know down below. If there's any other questions you may have, make sure to follow my personal page on Instagram, as again, I'll be posting the prompt for these Q&A videos. And before I go, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed and watched the last videos that we've posted. We recently just hit 180 subscribers, which may not be a lot to most, but for me is a big deal, so thank you. Also, I just want to say thank you to you all who've been really watching the content. The first video, well, one of the more recent videos I put up just a couple weeks ago just hit 1,000 views in 2 weeks, so that is a big accomplishment for me. So thank you all so much, and as always, I will see you all next time. Bye.